Hello, welcome, Michael Coren Show. It's a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays we have entirely sort of autonomous, self-contained panels, because Monday, Wednesday and Thursday are general discussions. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the whole group, we have faith matters, arts and culture, foreign affairs, federal politics, one-on-one interviews, or a specific area such as education or health or foreign policy. Sri Lanka. You know what? The number of shows we have done, the number of columns and editorials about the Middle East, when you think about this fairly small region and how much we know about that area, when it comes to Sri Lanka, or for that matter, the whole of the Indian subcontinent, very little known, I think. We're going to do our best to illuminate, educate, argue, shout, I don't know, but we've got a great panel, and let's see what they have to say. National spokesperson for the Canadian Tamil Congress, David Poopalsingham, correct pronunciation?
Oh, yes, you got it right.
Try my best. Media coordinator for the Canadian Tamil Congress, Manjula, Selvarajaha.
Thank you.
Lenin, Benedict, who's secretary of the Canadian Democratic Tamil Cultural Association. This will all become clear. And Silva, member of the Sri Lanka United National Association of Canada. Welcome to you all.
Well, thank you for having us, Mike.
It's a pleasure. Let's begin with you. Now, there's going to be a certain point of view, I should think, and a certain bias. But the history of Sri Lanka in 2 minutes. Now, what I mean the history since, I suppose, independence. Tell us about Sri Lanka, population, how it divides, and what the conflicts are.
Sri Lanka's population is about 20 million. After 20 million, about 76% Buddhists, I mean, Sinhalese, they're Buddhist, and a little bit of Christianity is over there too. 18% Tamils. There's a sizable population of Tamils are Christians, and majority of them are Hindus. A balance are Muslims. The Tamils live in the north and east part of the country. They have been living there for millenniums, and prior to independence, prior to colonial powers, there were 3 nations. One was a Tamil nation, the other 2 were Sinhala nations. Colonial power came, Britishers came, and they artificially united these nations, brought under one umbrella. That's the starting point of this crisis.
So since the fall of the British, basically.
That's right, yeah.
Great.
And since independence, successive governments in Sri Lanka manufactured this crisis, what we are seeing today, for their own electoral benefits. The first government, soon after the independence, disenfranchised 1 million Tamils, followed by they started colonizing the Tamil areas to reduce the representation for Tamils in those areas, to have more representation for Sinhalese in the parliament, followed by Sinhala only Act. They brought English was the common language. They eliminated that. They brought Sinhala only Act. They asked every Tamil to practice Sinhala if you want to have a job. Then major riots were masterminded by Sinhala governments, successive Sinhala governments, to steal Tamil's wealth, to bring Tamil down on their knees, and they touched the education. Followed by that. All these years, for 35 years, around 35, 36 years, Tamil leaders, then the Tamil leaders, fought non-violently, very unsuccessfully to get some redress. There were some pacts signed, none were honored. They wanted some autonomy, they were promised some autonomy, none were granted.
So when did violent resistance begin?
Violence started well after 70s. Well after 70s.
After 1970s.
Yeah, after experiencing all these peaceful protests, all these non-violent methods, all these electoral methods, the youths, they got disillusioned with these non-violent methods. They said they are raping our women, they are taking away our lands, they are killing our fathers, they are stealing our wealth, they are doing everything on the earth.
And the largest group representing in the violent and non-violent struggle, the Tamils, are the Tamil Tigers?
That's right.
Are there other groups?
Started with many other groups, but all the other groups, they couldn't stay on the picture because they didn't have a clear ideology, I believe. They didn't have the will to stay in this arms.
And what is the long-term intention of the Tamil Tigers?
The
autonomous region within the country.
Independent homeland in the island of Sri Lanka.
So Sri Lanka will be divided.
That's right. There was 2 nations. Only things what they're asking.
Okay.
The nation was taken away from us. Give back the nation.
Agree with that thesis?
No.
Go on.
I don't know whether you want me to give you a rebuttal or whether you want to give you just a thumbnail sketch of the history of Sri Lanka.
Whatever you would like in terms of response to that.
In terms of response to that, I would say that we got our independence in 1948. Prior to independence, of course, it was the British rule, and we had several British commissions, you know, like the Solberry Commission, the Donomer Commission, which studied Sri Lanka and how it would be administered after the British left. So whatever system came into place after the British left was more or less designed before they left. Coming to the question of, you know, 1 million people being disenfranchised, I would like to say that in Sri Lanka, there is a distinction between the Tamils who live in the north and the Tamils who live in the central part of the country, who are actually people of Indian origin brought there by the British to work on the plantations. This question of disenfranchisement has been thrown about a lot. However, it was not the Sri Lankan government that per se disenfranchised anybody. It was the fact that when the constitution was enacted in 1948, anybody who was not a citizen of Sri Lanka at that point in time was not a citizen of Sri Lanka. So it is not that the state disenfranchised them, it is the act of the constitution, and that applied primarily to the people in the hill country, the people the British had brought as Indian estate labor.
So they were Indian Tamils?
Indian Tamils.
So they've been brought in by the colonial power to work for them.
Okay.
They were never citizens of Sri Lanka itself.
No, some of them were. Some of them were. But it was a transient population because there was sort of a back and forth.
Right.
Right? So what I'm saying is it was not the Sri Lankan government per se. Some of them were disenfranchised merely because of their status at the time that we gained independence.
Okay. Bringing it forward from there, and that's an understandable explanation, the accusations that in long after that, 50s, 60s and 70s, terrible treatment of the Tamil people by the majority population.
No, I wouldn't agree to that. Just to follow up on this particular problem, successive governments had negotiations with the Indian government because they were termed Indian. They were British subjects, and then we had to come to some kind of an agreement with India. Is India going to recognize them as Indian subjects, or would it be Sri Lanka? So we had several, you know, conferences with our prime ministers, with the prime ministers of India, and eventually most of them were given Sri Lankan citizenship. The others went back to India. As far as this terrible treatment of the Tamils, that is debatable. If you were a Tamil and you wanted something that you thought you should have and somebody else got, then naturally you will feel that you were treated, you know, in a terrible way. However, I'd like to point out the question of, you know, the language. At the time of independence and subsequently, English was the language of administration and remained the language of administration. However, 95% of the population did not speak, read or write English.
Beyond language and possible discrimination, and this is all part of the subtext we can discuss, what about the absolutes of murder, beatings, rape?
No. There may have been, I'm not saying that there wasn't. There may have been isolated incidents, but it was not the policy of the government. I mean, there is murder and rape everywhere in the world, but it is not a government policy.
But political murder?
No. No.
No?
No. Okay. Today, you could say that, you know, the culture of violence has increased because of the situation in the country. And there is murder taking place everywhere, but it is not a policy of the government.
All right.